What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Filip Latocha, and today I'm not necessarily doing a Chicago Marathon recap, but I'm doing more of a lessons learned video from this previous race and how I'm going to apply it to my future races, including my 6 to 7 month build into the Tokyo Marathon next year. So before we get into it, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're subscribed, watching this content. Thanks so much, love you guys a lot. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, Strava for all the nice, fun updates and, just interacting on social media. It's all a cool deal. So without further ado, let's get into it. Of course, for those who didn't watch my previous video, basically during the Chicago Marathon this year, I ran a 3-hour, 13-minute marathon, which is not a PR, but it was significantly better than I did last year. So I'm happy with the fact that I ran better than, based on the circumstances last year with like poor weather, poor shoes, walking into the race, slightly injured. I'll take it for what it is. 3:13 is like perfectly reasonable. It's close enough to my 3:10, which I ran in 2019, where now I think I have some momentum leading into the Tokyo Marathon, which is going to be a little bit harder because there's more inclines, hills, and things like that, and it's also a different time of the year, and you're also training in a different time of the year. So there's things I'm going to factor in, but the most important thing I think I should take away here is that, one, I'm still in one piece after the Chicago Marathon, and two, I have good momentum leading into this particular race block. And I have also a couple of races I'll have set up that I think I'll discuss once we officially begin Tokyo Marathon training. But just know that everything is in the works, in the pipes underground. It's going to be cool. I'll reveal that plan. So if you guys ever want to meet up at a race or something, let me know. I'll be out there. So, kind of comprise myself a list of 4 particular things I'm going to make sure I pay attention to leading into the Chicago, or leading into Tokyo, that I learned from Chicago, or I should just be reiterating from Chicago that I knew before and just completely neglected. So, of course, if you guys have anything to add to this list, by all means, go for it. Just let me know. So the first thing, of course, I was getting just trashed in my other video for this in particular, was paying attention to nutrition more often. So I put in asterisks more often because it's not like I walked into the race like empty, right? I have 3 goo gels I use from, Goo, the company, the birthday cake flavor. It's pretty wild. I'm going to try to experiment with some more tart flavors moving forward, because the birthday cake I see is a little sweet, and sometimes you need to offset it with different flavors so you don't feel as if you're losing your appetite in any sort of way, you know what I mean? So I got to experiment more on that side, and of course try to stay away from using caffeinated ones for the most part. Birthday cake's not caffeinated, it's cool. So I bring 3, 2 for the race and 1 as an emergency, whereas I've already seen from multiple races in the past, I see people bring a ton more gels, like 6, 7 of them. They got the whole belt full of them. And I wonder if I do my nutrition wrong, where I'm not taking gels as often as other people. Also, it's probably worth assessing. They could be running faster or slower during the race. But my rule of thumb is usually to always bring about 3 gels in a marathon setting. 2 that you're going to take, you'll take 3. But if you need a 4th one for an emergency, then keep that in mind just while you're racing, right? So my strategy with Chicago, for example, is in my armbands, or my the arm sleeves that I have for keeping the temperature warmer on my arms. I'll tuck them into the arm sleeves. I got 2 on each arm, and then I've got 1 in the tights of my back pockets. And I'll take 1 at somewhere between 5 to 7 miles, and I'll take 1 around half marathon to 15, 16 miles. And at that point, you should probably obviously state the obvious of when are you going to take the 1 at mile 20? And I will take 1 at mile 20 if my body is ready for it. Even if I have to try to force it, that's going to be the big thing I take away from this from now on, is force the gel if you must, because you're going to need it after mile 20 big time, because the real race begins from mile 18 to 24, and you have to work through that block in particular. And if you need as much nutrition as you can get, then you have to train yourself to be ready to take it at a whim's notice, without even being my stomach, it's kind of flipping inside out. No, you have to take it. So that's something I'm really taking this time around. I'm going to pay attention to that nutrition moving forward. So I don't have, I'm going to try to post the graph here of essentially what my splits looked like, going from 650s, keeping it honest. then the ultimate crash at like mile 21 and a half and just not being able to recover because the nutrition just wasn't on, on point. It's the craziest looking graph. I like look at it now, I'm like, holy cow, that's a crash and burn for sure. And even for finishing in 3:13, it's like not impressive. Like, I'll put it this way. I told this to someone at the gym, right? It's okay that I ran a 3:13. I'm happy with it, but it's not the best that I could have done on the day. And nor is it like the best time ever, but I understand where it is compared to last year and compared to my PR. So that's why I'm happy with the result, and I'm happy that I'm like finally in the right place with it. So, of course, that's a long explanation of paying attention to nutrition. Number 2 is going to be an interesting one. I'm wearing a tank top for this particular one. It's to fix muscular imbalances. So something I've noticed the last couple of weeks, especially at the gym as like, I'm lifting more weights and like working upper body, is I do have actually an imbalance in my traps. Now that in itself doesn't really mean much if you don't care about your upper body nearly as much, but it's an indicator of other imbalances that may be occurring in your body. So I'll show you, right? So my right trap kind of looks like this, right? It's just normal, a little bit more vascularity, a little bit larger, has a little bit more definition than I would think that this left one, which is a little bit smaller. So if I like pull it maybe this way, I don't know if the camera's gonna work it properly, but if I flex them in a certain way, you'll see that the left trap is not nearly as large as the right trap. So the thought process there is, okay, maybe I use, when I'm running, for example, I'm thinking immediately to running. Like, what am I doing while I'm running that could make this an imbalance? Is it the fact that I'm wearing a watch on the left arm? It's possible, but you would think that because there's more weight now on the left arm, that you would be actually developing a larger muscle because you have more weight, more resistance, etc. But it doesn't seem to be the case. Is it my left arm form while I'm running? It's also possible, but and what sort of form am I running where the trap is not being activated nearly as much as the right trap? So if that's not, the way I would go about it, then I go to the next best place to fix everything, and that's my hips. So the hips are now a viable option as to a place with imbalance because it always starts in your hips, right? If you have like back problems, if you have arm problems, and again, I'm going to state this, I'm not a medical professional or anything like that. I've just learned this from past experience as a runner that like if you want to fix anything on your body, start with the hips, see where the imbalances are, and then you'll see how it, reacts to the rest of your body, how everything else is going to react to any sort of residual load or fixing you do in the hip area. So I'm thinking in the hips, I may have some issues that could be as a result of maybe bad posture, maybe the way I'm standing, one hip is raised higher than the other, and as a result, your body is positioned in a different way where one trap is getting, used more than the other. And I think there's a feasible theory to that. And I'm going to start playing around with it more, like doing more hip work, being more conscious of, where my legs are, where my knees are in certain positions, and seeing if this will fix my trap in the long run. Again, it's like, I guess, a physical looking aspect, but I think I could fix a lot more other issues with my running form if I fix this particular imbalance. Because, again, it's a physical side effect of something that could potentially fix my running issues. So another thing I notice when I will run on the treadmill with certain shoes is that my left foot tends to flare up and get sore much quicker than my right foot, even in a very short distance. And mind you, this is a flat surface. So you would think to yourself, like, how is that happening that one foot is like getting worn out more than the other? And my theory here possibly is that maybe the way the hips are aligned while I'm running, it could be the case that one foot is just experiencing more pressure than the other, and as a result, that's maybe why in the past I broke my left foot, one of the metatarsals. It could be why I'm experiencing the soreness in the left foot now. There's a lot of reasons for it, and it could also go into the more explanations as to why, like, maybe a Pegasus series shoe could be hurting my foot. There's a lot of questions there, and there's a lot of answers that can be done simply from trying to rebuild the balance in my hips. So point number 3 is, as a learning lesson, is to increase my race volume or training volume in this case, and do more tune-up races. So the tune-up racing piece, I suppose, is like kind of a hit or miss. Like, just do enough, everything in moderation. Just don't overdo it with so many races that you're burnt by the next marathon. That's an easy one. In terms of race volume, you guys may remember my race training volume was never over 60 miles a week. And I think that's a pretty decent average distance per week, but you saw the training plan I put up because that was the training plan I used in 2019 leading into the 2020 Tokyo Marathon before it got rescheduled, and I was able to do it to the T quite well. And this was like during the winter where like the weather just sucked and it was just not a good time. So I was able to run like that 80-mile week and then lead it into a 90-mile week. Just about. I didn't quite get there because that's when I was experiencing a little bit of burnout, and then the marathon did inevitably get canceled like a month before the race, right during that 90-mile week. So I just cut all the training immediately just so I could, like, you know, get my life back together. But anyways, the point there is that I'm going to try to stick to obviously doing like 70 to 80-mile weeks more often in this training block. So the only way to really accomplish that is to do more distance work. And the best way to do more distance work is to obviously eat better, sleep better, have more motivation to run longer during the day. And like after my 20-mile run leading into the Chicago Marathon block, I finally had like the distance bug in my system where I wanted to run more often for longer distances. So I need that same energy leading into this Tokyo Marathon block, obviously, because if you can't just run distance doing like 30, 40 miles a week and expect to be like decent or beat the goal of like a sub-3 marathon, unless you're like some sort of freak of nature or you have like a really good neuromuscular system. So for me, I think increasing that volume per week will be as a result of doing more distance work during the week and just having that endurance base build to a point where I can run like 22, 23 miles without feeling that burn, or at least being able to mentally power through it better than I did during this marathon race. And then, yeah, that was, I guess, basically all the points I really got. The last point I have listed here is more distance, and I kind of just really talked about that as well. So I think I covered all the points of what I got to do for the Chicago Marathon. If you guys saw my last video, or you guys have some lessons learned you took away from your previous races, definitely let me know in the comments here below. And yeah, I'm happy for any sort of suggestions you guys got leading into marathon racing in general. If it's something for Tokyo related, you know, just definitely let me know, because that training block is going to begin soon and I'm excited for it. It's going to be a different type of training environment leading to Tokyo, training out here specifically, and obviously training throughout the winter at like full force like I did in 2019 leading into 2020. So it's going to be exciting, and I want to see if I can pull it off and if I can actually get to Tokyo, run a harder course, and break the sub-3 marathon, and just accomplish 2 dreams in one day. Whew, that's a lot. Okay, cool. So I'm going to leave the video here. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.